おやすみなさいませ。ローザ様、あなたの地獄は今終わりました。
Kennen took a blanket out of a cupboard and gently covered Rosa with it. To anyone, it would have looked just as though Rosa was sleeping peacefully. Those demons had not exaggerated when calling this trial a battle of love. It was at least accurate on this cruel but unassailable fact, that those who have their love shattered meet with death.
これで僕のノルマは終わりだ。見届けたか、悪魔ども。
What the hell?
しまった。
There's Maria. There's the magical battle. Okay, good luck now. One of the two great witches of the gathering, Maria. Though she was just an apprentice, the power sleeping within her had impressed even Beatrice at the height of her strength. In Maria's eyes, though Rosa was the Black Witch, she also was the vessel of the mother she couldn't help but love. Her anger at having that stolen from her was near madness. Maria's attack was too emotional. Because of this, she didn't notice that Kennen had vanished for several heartbeats, and she released her barrage at what had become empty space. In the meantime, Kennen jumped from wall to wall around to Maria's back. Diplomatic immunity. Get fucked. Ah, shit. I'm fucked. This is cheating. The red locust blade extending from Kennen's hand vanished in an instant. He managed to make it reappear, but when he tried to use it on Maria and Sakataru again, it vanished once more. Because of Sakataru's power, he was unable to make either of them the target of his attacks. Maria finally noticed where Kennen was, and she slowly turned around. Kennen made his sword materialize yet again. But no matter how often he tried it, it kept fading out like a flashlight with a dead battery. As Maria howled, the entire parlor was surrounded by a cube of red magic barriers. It was a closed room symbolizing a barrier that Kennen could never escape. Kennen cursed his bad luck, even though he had forcefully fulfilled his goal in the demon's trial. If he was killed here, he would be dragged off the game board. No.
はい、照準など大それたことはいたしません。ただ私は身を守るだけです。
A cylindrical red magical barrier surrounded Shannon as she stood in the center of the parlor. She made its brightness and thickness grow, and its radius suddenly expanded, filling up the entire room. It wasn't targeting Maria. This power was being wielded to protect Shannon's body, so Sakataro's power didn't make it disappear. I was thinking with Cannon, what you could have theoretically done is like try to slash at the wall behind her, but you're standing in front of her. Thus, you're not targeting her, but you're targeting the wall behind her, or the space directly behind her. Thus, you can technically hit her instead of like targeting her.
お嬢様への気持ちはこんなところでついえるの。しっかりなさい。
By now, the shield with Shannon at the center had covered up the entire room. Its power crushed Maria and Sakataro into the corner of the room. Ironically, they were perfectly wedged between Shannon's barrier and the closed room barrier Maria had set up to prevent Cannon from escaping. Yeah, damn right, wannabe detective.
チェックメイトです。マリア様、よろしいですか？いいよ。潰して。それではこれにて。
The entire room was filled with the red light of the shield, and the output and pressure were raised to their limits. Then, crushed between the shield and their own closed room barrier, Maria and Sakataro lost their form, scattered into a golden splash, and disappeared.
ありがとう。ここで消えるわけにはいかなかった。
こんなとこで負けてたら諦めがつかないもの。
そうさ。こんなとこで負けてたら諦められない。
ゼパル様、フルフル様、私たちも共に試練を終えました。
Yeah, now it's time for Beatrice to do a trial.
これでよろしいですか？
いやー、本当にお見事だね。二人とも文句なしだったよ。
では最後はベアトリーチェの番かしら。おや？彼女はどこに？
もちろん彼女の選んだ生贄のところにさ。さあ、私たちもそこに行ってみよう。
Natsui could be seen in her personal room. No, don't kill Natsui. No. Cross had told her to go to bed. But she couldn't afford to lie around sleeping on an important day like this. Why couldn't they kill someone else? However, she realized that she was the type to get excited easily, and that this sometimes held her husband back, Oh, yeah, that's right. They usually try to kill the most suspicious people. Thus, this is probably for Erika. Kill Natsui early. So, though she didn't like it one bit, there was no way around it. It was probably close for the time for the break to end, and the family conference would begin once again in the dining hall. Her husband would have to protect the Ushirimiya family honor from those greedy siblings all by himself. If she grew emotional by his side, she would just tie him down. Though she knew that quietly waiting here was the best way she could support him, that didn't make the waiting any easier. Natsui pulled the small box she kept treasures in out of the drawer. This was her secret box. Inside was everything from valuable items to mere rubbish. However, they were all precious, memorable treasures in Natsui's eyes. She pulled a small pouch out of the box. She stuck her hand inside it. It was a kind of charm that her own family had given her when she had married. It was a spirit mirror to ward off evil. Her own face was reflected in the mirror. She wasn't as young as she once was. Recently, she had seen a bit of her parents and grandparents on her own face. Hey, she looks pretty good. Hey, she's aged amazingly. So by staring at her reflection in the mirror like this, she felt as though her soul had returned to the family she had once been born into.
お父様、お母様、夏日が不勉強なばかり。夫の支えになれません。
No, you've been great. Of course, her face in the mirror did not answer. However, Natsui continued.
夫を愛しているからこそ、私はここで待っています。しかし、愛は寄り添うものと私は思ってしまいます。ここでこうしているのが一番の協力になると、そんな自分に惨めさを感じてしまうのです。辛いですね。愛ゆえに待つの。
With a plop, a tear fell onto the mirror. Old dear memories of her life at her parents' house rose up inside her. Now was the time for her to follow her parents' example. When her father came home late, her mother would always sit up straight waiting for him, prepared for him to arrive at any moment. She would always wait for him, kneeling in the entrance hall. And no matter how late he came home, she would always wake up all the children and line them up to greet him. At the time, I only thought of her as being exceptionally strict. But at this age, I finally understand how strong she was, persevering in her love for her beloved husband, even after being left in charge of the house while he was out.
その夫への愛ゆえに見知らぬ赤子を抱かされるのが許されなかったのですね。
The sudden voice made Natsui jump up and look around the room. When she did, there was a Western lady wrapped in an extravagant dress.
誰です？
Natsui was confused. There was no one like this in this mansion. However, this was her first time seeing her. It felt as though she had seen this person somewhere else. Her mind had gone blank with her anger at the ruffian who had snuck into her private room and confused over the appearance of someone she didn't know. So much so that it took quite a bit of time before she realized that this was the witch of the portrait.
あなたが19年前のあの日に見知らぬ赤子を殺めたことに
何の話ですか？
Beato had chosen Natsui as her sacrifice. She was Battler's enemy. Beato didn't understand how much the details of Battler's birth. However, she knew the fragment of the previous game and knew that there was a chance that Battler was the baby that Natsui had pushed off the cliff 19 years ago. He's not. Spoiler alert, there's a 0% chance that he was the baby that was thrown off the cliff. I can state that with absolute confidence that he is not the baby that was thrown off the cliff. I can't prove it because, you know, devil's proof and all. But well, actually, I can use devil. I can technically just say there was read that, you know, he's Ushirimiya Battler, the son of, was it the son of Rudolph? It might have been, or that's what he should have said at least. But the grandson of Kenzo. I mean, all that stuff. He's not the baby of the cliff. He was the voice, but he wasn't the baby. Battler had used his blue wedge to protect Natsui from certain false charges, but since that might have been related to Battler's own confession, Beato still viewed Natsui as an enemy who might have forced Battler to live a painful life.
夫への愛ゆえに夫の血を引かぬ赤子を殺した罪を私は愛ゆえに問いません。
何の話か分かりません。出て行って。ここは私の部屋です。
ならば私の愛ゆえにあなたを殺すこともまた問わないでください。
Beata slowly stuck out her arms and made as if to grab something in empty space. That grab bound itself around Natsui's neck. Oh, this is pretty... Okay. Natsui's heels lifted up and a faint purple shade appeared under her neck. Natsui frantically scratched at her neck, trying to stop whatever was strangling her, but there was nothing there. So to an outsider, it looked as though Natsui was standing on her toes in anguish, scratching at her own neck. Oh, where have I seen that before?
愛し合う二人たちが皆決意を見せました。私のバトラさんへの思いがそれに劣っているとは思いません。私が19年前のあなたの罪を咎めないように、私も自らのこの罪を咎めません。
As Natsui's twisted in agony, something she had been grasping fell from her grip. Since it had fallen by her feet, Beato dropped her gaze to see what it was. It was Natsui's spirit mirror. When she peered into it, there was a sound like a burst of electricity. That sound released Natsui from the invisible hands, and made Beato topple backwards like a doll. Coughing, Natsui tried to comprehend what was going on around her. Beato rolled over and dizzy, as though she had just bumped her head, she slowly tried to stand up. Her eyes were bewildered, as though even she didn't really understand what had happened.
これは何なんですか。これは意外だ。蜘蛛の巣を触っても平気だったそなたが霊境はダメだというのか。私にも何が何だか分かりません。一体何が。
She had thought that only Beato the Elder possessed the non-human weak points, such as getting burned by spider webs and wards, having her magic power sealed by spirit mirrors. However, for some reason, this spirit mirror alone could apparently affect Beato as well. Even Beato couldn't understand what about that spirit mirror had such an overpowering effect on her. But Natsui was different. She instantly realized that the reason for the hesitation of this unearthly being, this witch of the portrait, must be the power of the mirror. So she rapidly crawled across the floor and picked up the mirror. When she stuck it out so that Beato could see it, Beato still didn't know what was happening. So still sitting down, looked straight at it. At this time, both of them understood the situation completely. Beato realized that the mirror was working some powerful, hateful power against her. And Natsui realized that the spirit mirror had the power to repel witches.
それはお前が横島な魔女だからです。霊言新たくなるこの霊境は邪悪な存在の全てを退けるのです。
What?
それを向けないで。
With the spear mirror still held out, Natsui cautiously closed the gap between them. She was cautious so as to prevent the other from suddenly lashing out and stealing the mirror, but she steadily moved to corner this evil.
あなたが何者なのかわかるのはあなたは私を殺そうとしたこと。
So I will kill you.
そしてこの霊境にひるむ邪悪な存在であるということです。退きなさい、邪悪め。
Beato didn't understand what was happening herself. She didn't know why she had this fear of the spirit mirror. However, when she tried to look at the bright light let off by the spirit mirror, it pierced her eyes. Though she didn't understand why she must be afraid, she did understand that she must be afraid. By now, Beato realized that this spirit mirror was both terrifying and harmful. As it came closer to her, she felt an increasingly stronger burning sensation over her whole body, as though someone was approaching her with a hot iron. She couldn't even open her eyes because of the mirror's bright, painful glint.
元の世界へ退散なさい、横島なる者よ。
I will exorcise you from this world out.
この後ろ宮夏、邪悪に対して一歩たりともひるみはしません。
It's no use. Why? Why is this musty mirror so? Yeah. If I lose here, I'll be the only one to fail this trial. Just like George and Shannon, Jessica and Cannon, I also want Battler to acknowledge me and treasure me. And even though I finally admitted that I alone in a place like this,
諦めちゃうの？あなただけが？
信じるんだ。愛の奇跡は必ず起こる。
I love Battler. I want him to notice me, and I want him to acknowledge and accept my feelings. And my reason for calling him father and dedicating myself to him was out of duty towards a parent of mine. I would have been satisfied with no reward. That had been a deception to fool myself with. I love Battler, and I want him to see me. I accept it. I won't turn away any longer. I was born because I love Battler, and I want him to love me back.
こんなところで負けられないんです。
退散なさい、横島なる者よ。ここにあなたの居場所は存在しません。
Her determination had come too late. If she had had it since the beginning, she would have probably have finished Natsui off right then and without any fear. Because she had wavered, it had taken time to kill Natsui, and things had ended up like this. But now I am resolved. I want to love Battler. I want him to love me.
だからここで負けられない。バトラさんのために私は生まれてきたのだから。
そう、それが。
聞きたかった。
What? Just after a sound like a beetle banging off all the walls in the room, the spear mirror was knocked out of Natsui's outstretched hand. It fell onto the floor, and the stake flying around the room pierced through it with a crash. Which stake? Oh, hey, Lucifer.
ここに久しぶりの獲物が古ぼけた鏡一枚だよ。私を愚弄するにも程があるわ。ルシファーさん。ベアトリーチェ様、試練の遂行を。逃げられます。誰か来てください。誰か。
Now that the spirit mirror her last ray of hope had been smashed and the number of strange demons had increased, Natsui could do nothing but run for it. However, if she made a scene and people gathered, the anti-magic toxin would burn Beato. Now was her last chance.
ありがとう、ルシファーさん。
Crush her throat.
覚悟。後ろ見やナチ。
Once again, Beato choked the thin air. This time she wouldn't let her escape. She had to end Natsui's pain right away before it got too drawn out. But her power wasn't enough. Though Natsui scratched at her neck, she also managed to struggle to escape from the room. Her shaking hand stretched out to the lock on the door. A closed room is one of the definition that makes a witch. Just unlocking the door made the magic toxin strengthen a little. Since Beato was at her limit even within a closed room, if Natsui undid that lock, Beato's power would weaken immediately, and Natsui would surely escape into the hallway. Their strengths were matched. However, Natsui's began to surpass Beato's slightly. The power of the living to live is fundamentally stronger than the power of magic. Of course, Beato was mustering all her might. However, Natsui was just slightly stronger. Thanks, Battler.
ギョイ。
Lucifer transformed into a stake, and like the time she had smashed Natsui's spirit mirror, flew violently around the room, and then she struck Natsui's forehead. Natsui crumbled slowly. When Beata saw this, she also fell to her knees, breathing hard.
ねえゼパル、これってありなの？ベアトリーチェは自分の力だけで試練を成し遂げていないわ。
そうだね、フルフル。確かに試練は誰の助けも借りずに成し遂げなくてはならない。
でもね、ひょっとしたらそれには例外があるんじゃないかしら。
Technically, Jessica used Ronave's barriers. Technically, she had help.
愛する二人は互いで一人だもの。これは手助けじゃない。
バトラさん。
たかだか第一の晩から ハラハラさせるな、お前は。
申し訳ございません。お言いつけを守らなくて。
お言いつけ？
その部屋でおとなしくしていなくて。
Beato hung her head apologetically. When he saw this, Battler scratched his head uncomfortably.
それを言ったら俺も申し訳なかった。言葉を選ばなかった。
いいえ、お父様。いえ、バトラさんは。
いいぜ、好きに呼べばいい。
Battler had always looked at the new Beatrice sternly. However, that was gone from his expression now.
確かにかつてのお前は俺をバトラと呼びつけで呼んでいた。俺は最初お前にそれと同じ呼び方を求めて押し付けていたかもしれない。しかしそんなのに意味はないんだ。お前はベアトだがお前はお前だ。
Good job, Battler.
好
Good
きに呼
job.
べばいい。
バトラさん。
そうだな、その呼び方がいいな。さすがにお父様は俺の趣味じゃねえぜ。
Thank you. Can we just cut that? Really, just stop it. Earlier, she'd hesitate just to say Battler's name at all. If Battler had told her to say his name without honorifics, she couldn't have done so right now. Even if she had, that might have hurt Battler even more. However, now she was allowed to call Battler by his name. If you just looked into her eyes, there would be no need to describe just how happy this made her feel.
ゼパルとフルフルに聞いた。おかしなゲームが始まっているようだな。
はい、勝手なことをしてすみません。
いや、いい。そういう無軌道で何を始めるかわからないところも実にお前らしい。それにそのまあゲームの趣旨も聞いてる。二人一組で挑むのが正しいことになってるらしいな。
Oh, good. Battler's gonna go kill someone.
その通りです、バトラ卿。
もしも見事我らの試練を勝ち残れたなら、
我らはあなたたち二人を祝福し、魔法の奇跡を授けましょう。
こいつらがベアとの黄金蝶のブローチに力を与えてたらしい。だからその効果は保証済みってわけさ。俺とお前の腐れ縁ももう随分になる。たまにはこういう遊びがあってもいいだろうぜ。
バトラさん。
おや、聞いたかいフルフル。バトラ卿も試練に参加するようだ。
驚くには値しない。だってこれは最初から分かっていたことだもの。
ようこそ我らの試練へ、バトラ卿。ではあなたは誰を生贄に？
I don't know, probably Hideyoshi or something.
俺の仕事はすでに終わってる。確認するといい。
Oh, himself. Duh.
かしこまりました、バトラ卿。さあフルフル、確認してこよう。
そうしましょう。でもゼパル、これで愛し合う6人はみんな試練を成し遂げてしまったわ。次はどうすればいいかしら。
The next round! We're going into overtime.
6人の覚悟は本物だ。さらに次の試練で試すとしよう。
Overtime. The two noisy demons disappeared. It seemed that they had left to go check on the sacrifice Battler had killed, and that they had done so also so that Battler and Beato, who could finally look each other in the eye and talk, could have some time alone. How's it going?
ここまでの物語はいかがですか？
It's alright.